常漂亮，是的。这波队已经是一只脚迈进了决赛。
The best teams from China, Korea, Southeast Asia, and Taiwan get ready to face off here at the Heroes Global Championship Eastern Clash. Hey guys, I'm Gillyweed here to bring you the English cast of this Eastern Clash throughout the weekend. And I'm joined here at the desk with my good friend Wolf, all the way here from Korea to impart his wisdom on us. How's it going, friend?
I'm feeling great. I flew all the way from Korea to cast a Chinese tournament in LA, but I'm feeling really good. We get to bring back the Gilly Wolf duo of old,
yeah.
And I'm hyped. It's going to be a great tournament.
It's going to be fantastic. We once again get to see China versus Korea, which is a storied rivalry here in the Heroes of the Storm scene, one that, you know, a lot of people talk about NA versus EU, but China-Korea has been going on for a long time.
It absolutely has. I mean, we've had, you know, Korean teams travel to China and play in Gold Club before, and usually the Korean teams win out, and in general, across the world, that ends up being the case. But this time, the Chinese teams are playing on their turf. They've got the Chinese fans with them in the studio, in the audience, cheering along with them. So I feel like this could be a different tournament. Unlikely, but possible.
Yeah, they've got high hopes in E-Star, definitely, as well as Super Perfect Team and Zero Panda. Now, just like the Western Clash that we saw a couple of weekends ago, this is going to be a double elimination tournament. So you've got a second lifeline. Should you have a bad day, a bad match, you can always come back. And that's definitely good to know since there are teams like L5, MVP Black in the mix. We're going to take a look at that bracket now and see what our first matchups will be. We are kicking things off with L5 versus Resurgence. We'll be talking a little bit more about that, but man, a tough one to go into for Resurgence. Followed up by Zero Panda versus Tempest. I think that's probably the hype match for me of these first four, Wolf.
I think it's definitely one of the greater ones. I'm also looking forward to MVP Black and Super Perfect Team. I think that's going to be a great series later on. And don't forget, we have E-Star against TFC, so China versus Taiwan. Always a really storied matchup there. Very similar regions, but very different in terms of play. Yeah, tough luck for Resurgence to hit L5 right at the beginning, but it is double elimination, so you have a second chance here. And one of the cool things to highlight with this bracket is that just like what we saw in the World Championship at Gold Club, this is one of the highest level tournaments of Heroes we're going to have because you have 3 Korean teams, not just 2 like we had at BlizzCon, for example, or some of our globals last year, and you've got 3 Chinese teams. So really, you feel like this is a strong, super high-level tournament with the best teams of the best from Asia. And that gets me super hyped. I know a lot of Western fans look for like the personalities in Europe and in NA, but if you want to watch high-level play, you've come to the right tournament. It's right here.
Resurgence walking to the stage now. Resurgence, this is, like we said, a very difficult match. You are going up against a team who barely lost games.
That's right. TFC as well, another one of those teams. I think we're just having a bunch of teams coming in here at the same time. But, you know, 2 of the underdog teams right off the bat we're talking about here as they enter on stage. And, of course, here is Tempest. This team, you know, once a champion, winning actually in the summer season of 2016. Different roster this time, but still the same core. One of the big favorites going into this tournament, of course, with the Korean teams. So I'm looking forward to seeing how well they're going to perform. I think they're considered by many to be number 3 of all the Korean teams. But look, Miracle was considered that same way. They did very well in China. And here's MVP Black. Basically kings of the world for Heroes of the Storm in 2016, having a bad performance at BlizzCon, but looking stronger than ever in this season of OGEN's, of course, Super League to HGC Korea.
Coming in with 2 new members to their roster as well, bringing in Tist and Reset. Excited, I'm so excited to see how they can fare here. And here they are, Wolf.
L5, 2-time back-to-back world champions. No one's ever done it before. They dropped 2 maps in HGC Korea. Just 2 maps. They went 7-0. Even Misfits' run in Europe isn't even fully comparable. This team is on top of Korea, which generally means, look, they won, they got first place in HGC Korea, and that usually leads towards winning international events. Whichever team is on the top of Korea is on top of the world.
Here's Super Perfect Team, the number 3 team in the Chinese region, coming in with some roster swaps of their own, as well as potentially some role swaps, which I know you might be excited about, because we might have Misaka back on his favorite role, the role we saw him break out on X Team.
I'm always happy to see Misaka play some specialist heroes. Wasn't a big fan of his tank play, but here's Zero, and I feel like, honestly, Zero has really surprised people, even going back to last year's World Championship of Gold Club. They looked really strong there. They've been a strong team forever. They're a big org in China. And I think the key about Zero is just their consistency overall, and I think they might be the Chinese team to go far here.
And finally, the number 1 seed from China, E-Star. E-Star has been the kings of Chinese heroes for so long. A couple blips here and there. You know, Edward Gaming did beat them in spring. They had some difficulties after losing Xiaoti and Naicha, but they are back in full force, and the only team from China at this event that hasn't had any roster swaps from the Gold League Finals to now.
And not only that, they've just been kind of the longest existing Chinese esports team. I think they're probably, for the Western fans especially, the most known team, created by Xiaoti, the ex-Warcraft 3 player. We've seen a lot of changes to the team since then, but it still feels like this powerhouse org that you always have to respect going into a big global event like this one.
Yeah, I think a lot of that too falls on the fact that they still have Xing Chen, this very respected assassin player who is even respected by all the Korean teams that he's played as well.
That's right, and to be honest, talking to a lot of Korean teams about scrims going to this event, especially after landing in China and getting ready, we've heard it before from the Korean teams, watch out for E-Star. They said that at BlizzCon. E-Star didn't perform as well as the Koreans were saying. They said that in Sweden as well. E-Star did pretty well there. But this time, people are talking to me are saying, no, I really mean it. I mean, take me seriously this time. E-Star is the scary team in scrims right now. So it could be very powerful.
That's awesome to hear. I'm so excited. I've been a huge fan of Chinese Heroes of the Storm for a long time. Got to cast some of it last year, so I'm used to this time zone switch. It's happened before. You know, I remember you watching it and hanging out in the chat back in the day. So I'm very hopeful that we get to see a strong foot here, a strong foot forward for China.
I mean, in esports, always, being the crowd favorite is so important. I mean, you look back at Fnatic versus MVP Black at BlizzCon, and everyone in that crowd, even in North America, wanted to cheer for the underdog, the European team, right? Now we have these teams in China with the Chinese crowd behind them, cheering against the Korean teams when they go up against them. And I think that's really going to make a big impact going into this entire tournament. You can't deny that influence of the crowd.
Absolutely not. All three, E-Star, Zero Panda, and SPT will have the crowd behind them. As you can see, too, there are the 3 in order teams from Korea where they placed 1, 2, and 3 in HGC Korea. But man, Tempest, it was a close call for them. L5, MVP Black, super solid, look almost untouchable, except for MVP Black when they go up against L5. But Tempest, it really could have gone either way for them here.
Yeah, it really could have. And I mean, we could have had a different story here where, say, Mighty, advanced up into the top 3. The top 2 were always very clear in Korea. But, when it comes to 3, 4, 5, 6, it gets a little bit closer, gets a little bit more tense. But L5, they're the kings of the world right now. They have a lot to prove now that they're on this different stage. They have to go against different regions, which is harder for them to prepare for because the Chinese teams haven't played in recent meta and televised matches.
Yeah.
They have a lot to hide.
They have not played really since January in any sort of capacity because it was the Gold League Finals. After this, we will have HGC China coming in for them, so that'll be different for them in the future. But you're right, there is not having those study materials can make it very difficult.
I think we're going to see against the Korean teams in this tournament specifically a lot of kind of cheese strategies or kind of specific snipe drafts that they might prepare for a certain map. We might see some weird map picks against the Korean teams because the Korean teams have showed so many games recently in an entire league format, whereas the other regions have shown like a weekend tournament, for example, like Taiwan, right? Or you've had China, which hasn't played in a long time. It's hard for the Korean teams to prepare and know what the Chinese teams are doing, for example, right now, whereas the Chinese teams have a lot more recent meta to look at and pick apart for Korea. And Koreans don't change up how they draft in general all too often.
Right.
So you have a lot of different things you can break apart.
Well, looking into today's schedule, as we said before, we'll be kicking things off with the #1 seed from Korea, L5, versus Resurgence our team from Southeast Asia. Zero Panda versus Tempest. That is going to be such a hype match coming in second. E-Star versus Team Face, check the team from Taiwan, and then MVP Black versus Super Perfect Team. But that won't be all. After that, we will move on to the 2 lower bracket matches, already having elimination matches day 1. So very, very familiar bracket as the Western Clash. If you watch the Western Clash, we're going to be following the same exact format.
Sad that some teams might have to have traveled all the way to Shanghai to play in this tournament and go home empty-handed on day 1 in terms of wins. So it could happen today to some of these teams that need to pull off upsets in order to remain a part of this tournament. They worked so hard in their individual regions to get here, but they could go home, essentially tonight.
And what they will be playing for is the prize pool of $100,000 broken up. Here we get ready for our first matchup of the day. L5 now the longest standing Korean roster after MVP Black made their changes. Haven't lost a series since September to MVP Black in the semifinals of Super League Season 3. Wolf, there have been so much talk about their teamwork, their objective control. What do you think makes them such powerhouses?
I feel like the consistency of the roster is something you can never underestimate, and it's been something that's gone on for Heroes of the Storm history for so long around the world. Even Misfits, for example, doing so well in Europe, I feel like comes from their staying together as a roster for such a long time. When you stay together as 5, you build synergy that's unparalleled, and I think that's really the main reason why they're so powerful. And let's take a look at their opponents, of course, here in Resurgence.
Coming to the stage, the members of Resurgence, representing Southeast Asia as well as Singapore. Resurgence has a lot of tenacity. They have been trying for a long time to qualify, first losing out to Relics in 2015. 2016, they were able to always claim the Singaporean spot at the Southeast Asia Regionals, but always falling to Renovatio 1, Imperium Pro Team. Finally, they have their chance, their first chance at an international stage, but man, they're gonna need that tenacity here.
Yeah, it feels like, they're walking this path of approaching greatness, right? Especially in recent times being the shadow of Imperium, and then finally making it to this tournament and now having to face off against Korea's finest, Korea's undefeated team in the first round. It's really unfortunate, and it's really unlucky that the bracket falls this way against Resurgence. But unfortunately, sometimes that's just how it goes. This is a tournament of, essentially a global scale. We have teams all over Asia coming together here, and only one team can be the champion, right? So if you want to win this tournament, if you want to go big, you're going to have to hit L5 eventually.
At some point. I mean, L5 are the favorites to win this entire event. However, as we've talked about the parallels with the Western Clash, so were Misfits. And Misfits did drop at least a game to Nomia, the representatives of Australia and New Zealand. Are L5 the type of players, would you say, who may underestimate their opponents here?
I wouldn't say they underestimate. When I watched L5 scrim, especially at BlizzCon, where I was able to sit down with them and actually stay, kind of in their practice room getting ready, the way that Jungha, especially approaches drafting against any team they played against, whether it was NA, SEA, or another Korean team, was super serious. Very much, let's just think of this as if, you put a barcode over who we're playing against. we're going to approach this draft like it's any other team. We have our way of drafting. We think about the game in kind of a standard way. So I think they're going to take Resurgence just like any other opponent that they would face in training, even, for example. So I think they're going to really not underestimate them. They're going to do their research, but also play their own play style. They're not going to try anything tricky. They're not going to, you know, underestimate their opponents in terms of like, well, I want to try something here. Let's experiment in this best of 3. I think they're going to take it as if they were playing against MVP Black.
When we look at this team, 5 solid, amazing playmakers for the team, but who do you look at for L5 to be the playmaker of the team?
It has to be Noblesse. You know, when you think about playmakers, sometimes the players that shine and get known are the assassins, right? Everyone thinks about Rich, the former MVP Black player, or like Quagnix, for example, just a ton of damage in Europe. You think about the carry player. And sometimes tanks go underappreciated because of that, and you don't actually get to see how much they peel because it's not as flashy. But he's the guy who, by positioning and peeling, allows SC, for example, to do massive amounts of damage, Nitrogen as well. Because of Noblesse's positioning, they're able to do those carry plays. And I think Noblesse is really the guy who brings the team together, holds them together, and when things go wrong, he helps them retreat. It's all him, and I feel like, I mean, look, you see him right here on camera. He's the guy to look at for this team, and I think most people would agree.
Noblesse's Muradin is 9-0 and averages 12.3 assists per game throughout HGC Korea so far. 9-0, undefeated Muradin. And Muradin is not necessarily the favorite warrior for a lot of teams in the current meta, but it's been such a staple for Noblesse for so long.
It really has, and you even see Noblesse sometimes run the Cloud9 mount, you know, going back to, I feel like, giving respect to
yeah.
to King Caffeine back when he was the king of Muradin in BlizzCon 2015. But I mean, I really feel like Muradin is rising right now as a tank, as a warrior, and in Korea he was for a long time. But yeah, I mean, that's something to look at in the draft, and no doubt Resurgence here has studied this and may even target ban it going into this first game.
For Resurgence, looking at playmakers, for me, it seems like with a lot of the small regions that we see, it's whoever ends up getting their comfort picks is going to be the one that has to step it up for them. They are very comfort pick based. That's just in general what we see from smaller region teams that go to these international events. I'm a little worried for CW, their warrior player. His favorite has been Varian. In the past, and of course we had the Warbringer nerf come in, no longer being a stun, an 85% slow. But I'll be watching out for things like Zappy's Zeratul, Yu Yang's Dahaka too. These are really important picks for the team if they can get them.
Yeah, the Varian nerf is really interesting as well going into this series because Noblesse, I feel like one of his weakest tanks is actually the Varian. Just in terms of how he plays it, he's gotten caught out of position. Varian doesn't have much of an escape, which I think Noblesse really pushes the button on escapes. Like, that's why his Muradin is so good, because he goes into the last second before he dwarf tosses away. So this actually could be a boon for L5 that they don't really want to run Varian that much, and then Resurgence wants it as a result, but it actually isn't as strong as it used to be. I think we're going to go into our first map. Looks like, if I saw that correctly, it's going to be Infernal Shrines. See if I'm right here.
Dude, this stage is awesome.
It is nice, and we got this cool augmented reality here.
So we're going to be banning out Warhead Junction and Braxis Holdout. Braxis is the common ban for L5, generally. Sometimes Warhead as well, but those are going to be the 2 that are banned. And then Resurgence, not sure who has picked this, we'll have to see, but it is Infernal Shrines for our very first game. This is a battleground that can be picked from L5, but also Resurgence. So I thought that this might be the first map going into the series.
Yeah, it's common to see this map first, especially for L5, as you just mentioned. And just by the fact that it's blue here, I say it's probably an L5 pick, which means Resurgence probably has first pick, first ban going to this draft, which is a nice edge to have against such a great team like L5. Again, especially because there's so much to study on L5's side. They played 7 best of 5s in HGC Korea just recently. Not on the same patch we're on now, but there's a lot of recent games to look at. So many with that round-robin format that we have this year, which is so awesome for HGC.
Yeah, let's talk about the patch a little bit. It is not the patch that is currently live. The one with the Arthas buffs, as well as the Probius coming in. It is the one that happened before. So Tychus changes, reduction to his range, changing of that's the stuff. Variant changes too, buffing Colossus Smash Twin Blades of Fury slightly, but the change that we mentioned is, of course, Warbringer being changed, and we are ready for the draft of game number 1 of this best of 3.
All right, this is going to be really exciting because this is a really different patch than what we saw Korea play on before. Korea was never able to utilize Lucio, for example, and I don't think we'll see him too much in this particular best of 3, our first one. Looks like it will actually be the first ban here for L5. But I want to see what they actually decide to prioritize. They're going to take the ETC away right off the bat here, so probably scared of Resurgence's aggressive playstyle. We see the response here with the Kerrigan ban. Don't want Jungha to have this hero. He's not as known for it as Rich was in the past, but Tassadar coming in first, and this is pretty rare for Korea to actually prioritize him this highly. You know, since the rework to Tassadar that came out a few patches ago.
And especially because in that patch that we mentioned, Kadarian Resonance was the change. So no longer can you have persistent shielding. For the first time, I was joking that it was an end of an era for Tassadar not to be able to have that persistent shielding, but there are different benefits now. If you do, you are able to pick up the globes, you still can get 100% increased duration of the shielding.
Okay, so the Vala pickup here is a pretty obvious one. We've seen Tassadar paired with Vala most commonly, and that's where you just kind of take this away. Whether Resurgence wanted to draft Vala this early or not, they're going to take it away to deny that from L5. I'm going to take currently the strongest support in the pool, Malfurion, and anyone will tell you that his root is insanely powerful. And they've been just notably an aggressive team early on. I think that's part of the reason why L5 banned away the ETC, because that pairs really well with early aggression, early stuns, for example. And one of the ways you can beat a team like L5 is to stop the ball rolling early, get an early game advantage, because L5 really shines because they take big leaps from small steps. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like they get a small edge and they turn it into something huge. So you really just want to be on top of it from the beginning.
Yeah, you have to be. And that is, like we said, only 2 teams beat L5 in all of HGC, and that was how those teams were able to do it, MVP Miracle and Tempest, I believe. So now the next 2 picks for them, I was wondering what was going to be paired with Tassadar. So far, we don't see too much of what they're giving away with that, but Ragnaros and Tyrael.
Looks like they really want to pick up some of these melees early on. When you see Tassadar Tyrael in Asia or Korea, you start to feel like we're going to see a big melee here.
Yes.
You know, it starts to feel like this could be a gray main composition or an
That's
Illidan composition. And right now for Resurgence, they're thinking, what in the world is L5 trying to protect here with the Tyrael Tassadar? With Ragnaros taken as well as a melee, oftentimes Ragnaros fills the slot of melee so you don't end up with like an Illidan. So I think Resurgence, you know, ends up here scratching their heads a little bit, trying to figure out the mind game that L5 is playing, and it's not super obvious.
It is not. Tracer will be the ban for Resurgence, so that is the main concern for them. It was maybe another possibility, although on Infernal Shrines, it does sort of put your team or your opponents in the mind of having to get kills versus focusing on just winning the Shrine, but with Tassadar and Ragnaros, they still do have some wave clear there.
Yeah, and you know, it's no secret that Task Tracer is a big combo, you know, throughout the world, not just in Korea or China. You see it in the West often as well. So it's a safe ban, but still, we don't really know what L5 is going to bring to the table here. I'm starting to almost lead towards the gray main, which would be super unusual. We just really don't see that all too often. Of course, you know, his secondary heroic was changed and buffed quite a bit recently, so that's something that they might be looking to use here. As for Resurgence, they need to pick up a warrior right now, I'd say. And they've already lost ETC here. So Muradin is kind of the hero I'm looking for right now. That's the obvious pick.
They may still go for Varian here. Oh, Diablo and Dahaka.
Wow.
So getting their front line.
So Diablo obviously is a great solo Shriner on this map, and if he's given room to work with, he can just sit there and Shrine while pushes happen, similar to like a Sonya or a Kerrigan. He's not the best, but he's quite solid at that. And they may try to pair him with some sort of big heroic as well if they don't want to grab a second damage. We've seen Diablo and Zeratul paired together in the past quite a bit in Korea. Usually you don't see a Dahaka and a Zeratul on the same team, but I'm going to keep in mind, there's the gray main we were looking for. Okay, this is a little bit different. We're already seeing a really big change in how L5 is drafted. They paired an auto attacker, a ranged auto attacker with Tassadar, but it was not the one that Resurgence expected here. So L5, I think, got everything they were looking for.
Giving away a little bit though, but maybe just some slight changes to how they feel the meta has adjusted with the latest patch. We'll have to see maybe they're not at all. Maybe this is sort of a red herring, if you will, trying to say, oh, we're going to play this so that later on they have the possibilities in future games to be able to get the drafts that they want. Now, on the other side, on Resurgence, they never played more than 2 melees ever in their regional, so I do think that this will be some sort of backline hero for them, but what it is still sort of a mystery. We've got Gul'dan. Still, if they want to be able to pair him up with Malfurion, and there are a lot of melees on the side of L5, so that would be an easier way of them being able to not only stack whatever quest he wants to go into, but also horrify as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a Gul'dan pick very likely. Oh,
wow.
Jimmy Raynor instead. So I've really, with the Tychus nerfs, I've really been looking towards Raynor as a new auto attack kind of replacement for him, because Tychus's range was so significantly reduced that it's tough to actually make the argument to use him anymore at the highest level. Raynor has more range than anybody else. That's kind of his trait, right? He has the larger vision there. So I like the Raynor pickup here, but it kind of locks them into a position where they don't have a range that is consistent in terms of ability damage. They don't have the damage over time that they're looking for to burn Greymane out. And I'm worried about Valla. Does she have enough protection here? The Zarya was banned away, and Greymane is looking to go for the throat, I'd say, in this case, and just rip her away.
Yeah, it's interesting to see whether we'll have go for the throat if he wants to be able to focus on the backline, or if we'll still get Cursed Bullet. We had it quite a few times at the Western Clash, I would say to varying degrees of success. But we were warned that that could be a good potential that we see a lot more of that. So I'm interested to see which way Greymane wants to go with his heroic.
When the Cursed Bullet change came out, HGC Korea had already finished, essentially. So, you know, we didn't get to see it too much in Korea, except in the Open Division, where we did see the Open Division teams kind of rise up and get into HGC Pro League, try to run it, again, to middling success. So I feel like, especially with Valla having very limited protection here, with Zarya banned away, Tastar was taken, of course, and even Tyrael, of course, on the side here of L5, I think we're going to see go for the throat. I think they're going to try to wipe Valla out first, remove all that damage. Even
Raynor is not known for his escapability. He has his Adrenaline Rush as a passive healing if he gets into trouble, and we'll need that if he becomes the target. But yeah, I agree with you. He has the dive buddy of Tyrael to go in, Sanctification to help bail him out too. Tassadar shields on top of that, and we're seeing Protect the Greymane once again composition come back into the forefront, which that was all Summer Global Championship
was about. That's right, especially China and Tempest.
Yeah.
More than MVP Black, we saw Black run it, but they weren't as good at running the Protect the Greymane, the Protect the Dami, really, who was the god of Greymane at that time. We didn't see the Chinese teams have as much success as Tempest did. But L5 has run this, like, not this exact comp, but comps like this with the Protect the Damage, usually with Valla, quite a bit. And MVP Miracle in Korea was running a lot of the Let's Protect the Valla composition. Now the Valla is vulnerable, has another, you know, ranged attack buddy in Raynor, but I just don't know if this protection is actually going to be enough for Resurgence here, because let's be real, Greymane does a lot of damage and he has a lot of support. Like, he's never going to theoretically die. He's going to go in when his team is ready to support him, especially post-10 when they have Sanctification, and I'm worried. We could even, I don't think we will, but we could even see Force Wall for some more of that zoning to actually pull Valla out and make it so that her teammates can't protect her. Diablo is looking to be the protection here in a lot of ways, right? But I just don't know, again, if that's going to be enough.
Yeah, there have been still some Force Wall players in HGC of Korea, if I'm remembering correct.
Yeah, like Duck Duck is probably most known for his Tassadar play, as Force Walls for all time were godlike. Koreans, a lot of the time when I talk to them about this, I talked to Duck Duck specifically about Tassadar because he's the Tassadar god ever since Darvish, you know, became a main support player. And he said he kind of feels like Tassadar is cool for protecting heroes, but he also does a lot of damage with Archon. So I don't feel like they're going to use Force Wall here. I think they're going to look for the extra damage with the Archon, which can help finish off those targets for Go for the Throat to get the reset. But, you know, in theory, the Force Wall could be used here. Absolutely.
And I'm looking on the other side, too. Like you said, it's going to be a little scary trying to keep those carries, Valla and Raynor, safe on the other side of Resurgence. But they do at least have two frontliners, Diablo and Dahaka, to try to zone people away. You know, they've got the Drag, they have Apocalypse and Dive, too. So we'll have to see if that's going to be enough for Resurgence as we head into game number 1.
Don't forget, obviously, the big rag in the room here. Jungla's going to be on that hero here, and I mean, that hero is just insanely strong right now at zoning the shrines. If anything goes wrong before 10, because I think post 10, L5 should theoretically just God mode every fight, but if anything goes wrong and they need to, Molten Core is going to give them the kind of backup panic button to finish off the shrine or start to win a fight that was going poorly from them from the start.
I'd like to talk about Rhaegar here because it hasn't been a super common pick for L5 throughout HGC Korea. They have 4 games on the hero. Undefeated though, and does lend to offering more protection for Greymane. I don't think we've seen any bloodlust from them.
Not from Swoi, no. We have seen it in Korea a few times, but to very, very limited success. In fact, I am a big bloodlust hater right now, actually. I don't think it's the go-to here. Obviously, it could help Greymane over the threshold of damage, but I feel like that just doesn't matter if he just simply doesn't die. He's going to do more damage anyways, so you want to get the Ancestral on him. Like, he has Tassadar shields, and when those expire, he's going to have armor, and he's going to have Tyrael shields, and then later on Tyrael's Sanctification. And all these cooldowns were not going to be used all on top of each other. They're going to be staggered in such a way that he's always going to be protected one way or another, and there's just no burst to blow him up before the shields can come down on the side of Resurgence. And I think for Resurgence to win this, they're going to somehow have to find a way to use the CC of Dahaka and Diablo to pull him too far away to do that damage, and that's really on SC. If he makes mistakes, maybe they find that opportunity.
In the blue, global champions, 2-time global champions, L5, with Swoi playing Rhaegar, Noblesse on Tyrael, Jungha playing Ragnaros, Nacho Jin playing Greymane, and SCSC will be playing Tassadar.
And of course, their opponents here all bunched up, making it hard for me to know who's playing what. But you can see what their comp is, of course, here as we take a look at our level 1 talents. We even have Lightning Bond here at level 1, which is part of the reason why I'd say for sure Rhaegar is the choice. You have Smite damage as well, and even, of course, the common Psystorm starter here for Tassadar. So I like what L5 is going for with this composition. And again, let's not forget that Raynor's scaling is incredibly strong into the late game because he is building into auto attacks. That's all he really does. Notice the positioning here of L5, super aggressive, just trying to catch anybody who steps over the line. But yeah, Raynor is going to gain damage over time from his Season Marksman stacks. Will eventually get that attack speed buff, that big bonus. And that's a key big power spike for them as we get into the mid game.
As you mentioned, Psi Infusion for Tassadar is going to not only help him with making sure that he can have mana for these potentially long fights over the shrines, but also be able to increase his damage later on too, helping out with the Shrine Clear and Lightning Bond for Rhaegar, really important on battlegrounds such as this where you can get that extra little bit of DPS because they being L5 sacrificing a little bit and having this double support comp, so making up with it with some different talent choices.
And what's really interesting in terms of who's playing what actually in this game for L5 is that it's actually Nacho Jin who's playing Greymane here, which is quite unusual. Nacho Jin's normally considered to be the ranged flex of the team, so he was normally the player who'd be playing Tassadar here, which means that he must have been preparing Greymane specifically for an instance like this, which leads me to believe it's probably not a normal composition for them, and they wanted to bring it out early, which is not what I expected from L5 going into a matchup they're so favored in, to kind of show a hidden card, if you will. And it kind of hurts, I would say, that SC's mechanical skill kind of goes wasted here because he's playing Tassadar, who's not really known to be a mechanically demanding hero. Ooh, Noblesse actually overstepping the line quite a bit here. Nearly gets picked off. In fact, Malf is trying to lock him down, but it's not going to happen.
Alpha have been running this 2-1-2 style of laning setup prior to the first shrine, realizing that Resurgence sent so many members up to the top. As you can see, Greymane and Rhaegar got a lot done in the bottom lane, giving them a nice half-level lead. And level 4 moving into the first shrine, so they had setup here. But Resurgence are keeping up with the members of L5 and the Skeletal Defenders for now.
Yeah, they have a lot more poke, so they can actually kind of steal some of those away from range. But they're actually stepping in real hard in here, and there's the kill on Duval already. Zappy goes down. They're going to try to get a counter kill here, and they will actually. Ragnaros goes down, Junga is dead, but Crapcorn has no way out. No Snowblast is body blocking here, actually nearly securing the kill on Dahak. In fact, still tangoing with him up there. Looks like he's going to escape, but regardless, this will be a one shrine here for L5, our very first one. Resurgence has that range, you know, they have Vala, they have Raynor, they have the ability to poke, but the second Zappy stepped too far in, Nacho Jin dove on him, and I feel like that's going to be the story. We already talked about it from the draft. Can Zappy stay alive here on the Vala? And already he took one extra step too far forward into the shrine and got punished.
Capricorn as well with Raynor. Same thing happened right off the bat too. I felt like in watching their regional, he was the one that could tend to having some punishable positioning. So it's going to be really important, especially if SCSC decides to go for Force Wall instead, just to lock somebody down a little bit better. It's going to get flipped over, but still has Dimensional Shift. That'll be used. We'll see if Yang can get a drag off of this. Trying really hard. SCSC gets the movement speed, and he will get safe.
And now they're going to turn this fight. Again, Yu Yang stepping over, actually brush-talking into this fight. Good CC here by CW to actually try to save him, but it's not going to happen. In fact, CW likely will go down as well, and L5 walks away unscathed. I mean, we talk about how this fight started. Resurgence with some really impressive coordination, actually having Yu Yang come in, brush talk right in at the exact moment that Diablo was going in for that charge and grab. So good coordination there, but L5 just mechanically outplaying them at the end of the day. Still, I like to see this type of coordination from a team. It shows their confidence and it shows their preparation.
Ooh, that is a scary talent being highlighted by the Observer. We've got Wizened Duelist for Greymane, an old favorite during the Protect the Greymane age, the era in summer of last year, being able to increase his attack damage with every takedown he gets. So adding even more, if he's able to get that stack up and Resurgence can't keep those stacks refreshing, trying to get the kills on Greymane, they're going to be in trouble in those fights.
I mean, you know, when you go back to the grand finals of course, summer 2016 in Sweden, I was always looking at Tyrael as a third support. A lot of people think of it just straight a warrior, but he has so much support to him that it's so difficult to kill Greymane. He's going to get those stacks. And if you look at the last game, Dami had 0 deaths. And that's something I'll always remember is Dami had 0 deaths in that winning game against MVP Black. And I believe we might see something similar here with Nacho Jin. If he's just supported well and continues to get those takedowns, he's going to snowball out of control. Already they have about a level and a half lead. They're going to have heroics first as well. They've taken down an early fort just off of the pressure alone in the mid lane. And I worry for Resurgence, where are they going to catch up here? And oh boy, Yu Yang nearly gets picked here as well. Doesn't stay too greedy, but unfortunately this shrine will be controlled already by L5. Such quick clearing here as well with a lightning bond. Swoy is showing how it's done.
Now, Resurgence can't contest this because heroic abilities are almost here. So I would like to see them push elsewhere, especially maybe in the top lane, but the rotations aren't really showing that from them so far. Yu Yang continuing to at least get the soak in all 3 lanes, which is very important, but if they were able to take down some towers, maybe get a little bit closer to heroic abilities for the defense of this, because as it stands now, they're going to have to back completely up. There is no wall to bait the Punisher over this fort. Resurgence have to go all the way back to the keep and try to bait over that and just play it very, very safely until they can get heroic abilities.
Notice L5 how aggressively they position as well here, Gilly, because they don't have heroics like you just said. And also, Resurgence showed 2 in the top lane immediately on the wave, so L5 knows that, yes, they're going to lose a lot in top, and Resurgence will be able to catch up to 10 from that wave, and the cannon towers, I think they just blew up in top. But they don't have as much pressure to deal with here, and both the ranges in Vala and Raynor were in the top lane, so it's taking a long time to kill this, actually. They don't have any range until just now when they've barthed home, so this Punisher gets all the way in onto the keep, gets to the wall with nearly full health, and this is an Arcane Punisher, which is the strongest type. Resurgence still doesn't have heroics, and now the team fight begins.
Oh, Sulfurious Smash blows up Vala. Nacho Jin diving in. Raynor gets taken out, and now there are no ranged heroes even to defend versus this potential death push of L5. 3 members taken out, but The keep has not been taken out, actually. They did bait the Punisher clear over to the other keep, and with the respawn timers being so low, members of L5 fairly low on mana and even a little bit of health, they're going to back off, so not going to win the game just yet, but it is a rough spot that they have put Resurgence into.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a long hill to climb here to come back in this game. I feel like the choice to clear top really quick with the range was a double-edged sword because it got them the EXP they were looking for, but unfortunately they didn't get 10, so they missed all that range damage on the Punisher, and by the time they came back, they still didn't have 10, so they didn't quite get what they needed, and the Punisher got the keep for free as a result. Resurgence is going to actually aggressively steal this Bruiser camp here when you're behind, take risks, definitely, and this is actually going to pay off. L5 doesn't realize it in time and can't punish.
That was a nice win for Resurgence. They did get a camp, but they also need to make sure that they're trying to catch up in experience. But as they realize that was a very, very small window where maybe they could have had a fight on even footing, Ragnaros is going to go into Molten Core. Swing comes out, 2 stuns. Zappy gets hit. Unstoppable cleanse from Julian to get Zappy away from what would have just taken out Vala.
Yeah, definitely important cleanse there and nice vault to escape. L5 looked like they might have tried to collapse there, but instead they're just going to take the macro approach as they're known to do and take double camps here to push this mid lane to try to secure a second keep. It's not going to be easy, but they're already on the way here. Nitrogen, look at all the support he has. Even when rooted and caught, he's not afraid of anything here. Capricorn actually losing too much health. They're actually opening the threshold for his stim there to actually heal him back up, so that's already down for the next engage. And Dahaka is just forced to stay in the bot lane because of that early keep kill.
Noblesse going to dive in. Sanctification on the other side. Raynor gets taken out from L5. These stacks for Nitrogen have to be getting close to maximum attack damage. The max is 30% extra attack damage. And they're just going to let Ragnaros clear out the shrine. He can do it by himself and keep up the pressure here in the mid lane. The more damage that they can put on to the keep, the more deaths that they can get, gets L5 closer to winning the game.
Yep, Jungha here is just going to solo shrine. This is what you do when you have an edge like this. You push a lane or you soak EXP to get a further lead in terms of EXP while having a solo shriner on this map. That's why heroes like Kerrigan are so strong here, because they clear so quickly while you actually get an objective. In this case, it was just the keep wall. And by the time Resurgence can get back and respond here, they're almost 2 talent tiers down. Unfortunately, their target they grabbed here is SC, who just simply dimensional shifts away. This Punisher is now walking down mid where the keep wall was already worked upon, so this is kind of already set up for L5 to get a free keep here. And Resurgence is still down that talent tier, just desperately trying to hang on.
The nice thing for Resurgence is that L5 and hanging out in mid for a while don't have 16 along with this push, and they still don't have Sanctification either since it was used to get that kill. A Soul Fury smash out, Raynor's taken down, more kills to come, potentially Apocalypse.
Well, the Apocalypse here does a lot of stun damage here, or rather a lot of stuns, a lot of CC here, but there's no follow-up damage as already the damage is removed in the fight. Looks like this is going to be a wipe here. Oh, Yang does barely escape as CW respawns. The Punisher's not interested in the core, but L5 is going to try to focus it down here. I think they simply easily have enough damage to do so with Nitrogen uninterrupted on his attack speed, has all those stacks earlier from the Wisdom Duelist you were talking about, and L5 will dominate game number 1. Very easy victory for them once the game started to snowball, and I feel like that happened right when they hit 10 so significantly faster than Resurgence, and they just continued to push every advantage. That's what I'm talking about when I say you give L5 an inch, they take a mile.
Yeah, they did. Right from earlier on, once they got a shrine, once they started to be able to get a couple of kills, that was all it took for them. And I loved the Sanctification kill over the wall. That was probably my favorite.
This is something that Tyrael players in Korea are most known for, is you don't actually sanctify, you don't use the Sanctification where your Grey main is fighting. You put it ahead of where he's going to then roll into and engage or dive into. So when he arrives, no one can CC him, no one can stun him, and he does free damage, even if the team is in position to stop him. When the Aldruins and the Sanct go down, he's already moving in to his targets. Not that he has to stay in the Sanctification and do that damage. He's not restricted by Tyrael because Tyrael is following him, essentially. And that's what we saw there. Really impressive play by Noblesse, getting that Sanct down. It's terrifying to play against a Grey main team like this when the coordination is this good.
It is, and that coordination has given L5 a lead in this best of 3, but we'll see if Resurgence can bring it back in game number 2 right after this.
Fall before the might of the king.
Varian Rin.